All right, welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on this 24th day of October 2022. My name is Sam Gituko, and I want to introduce the panelists once again. Senator Dan Manzo from Makueni County. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning.
And Senator Joe Nyoto from Murang'a County. For the very first time, he's on Citizen TV. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Gituko.
Should I say congratulations? I haven't met you since you won your seat.
Thank you.
How is your new job? It's been close.
My new job is okay, and I thank God that the people of Murang'a decided to vote for me. I am learning the ropes, and it's a job that I had prayed for, a job that I asked the people of Murang'a to give to me, and they did so. And I'm doing quite well. I thank God. Yeah.
When I look at the history of Murang'a the past few years, a senator serves one term. They either lose the re-election or they become something else. What's your plan?
My plan for now is to serve as senator of Murang'a. Come 2027, I think I would want to defend my seat in 2027.
Okay, all right. Of course, it's too early to even have that conversation. But congratulations again, and welcome on board.
Thank you.
I want us to take a look at some of the stories that are making headlines on the two dailies. On the front page of the Daily Nation, Kalonzo refused job offer. That's according to President William Ruto, who yesterday said that he had made deliberate efforts to engage Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka, including offering him a job in his government, which he flatly declined. That's what he said while in Ukambani. But of course, we also saw Kalonzo Musyoka alongside other leaders of Azimio team in Nyanza, and they were saying that the president has failed on his promise to lower the cost of living. Then on the front page of the Standard, a similar story, Ruto, Kalonzo has refused to work with us. The president says he reached out to Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka, but was snubbed because the Ukambani leader was comfortable in the opposition. We'll be listening to their voices later on. But first, Senator Manzo, when you listen to this, and even Rigathi Gachagua says that hatumuelewi, we don't understand him. I mean, what is this about? Before you listen to the voices, what is this about in your view?
You know, President Ruto and his team know that the election was closely contested. And there are many things they cannot do with the parliament unless they've got more numbers. For example, they cannot amend the constitution. Where parliament can amend the constitution, the sections which do not require to go to referendum, without 2/3. Clearly, President Ruto cannot raise 2/3 of MPs or 2/3 of senators without consulting or getting part of Azimio. Therefore, it's clear to him that he needs the voting bloc of Kalonzo Musyoka to stabilize his government fully. And as experienced politicians, they know failure of keeping these promises and the many troubles which are coming up, like you saw how the president has handled the issue of the conflict in the east between Somalis and Merus, Somalis and Kambas on herding and you know, this drought. He pushes it to a county commissioner. Clearly, this is a matter of cabinet, it's a matter of the president personally. People are dying every day, and he just takes it as a very simple matter. That shows how, you know, not serious, his administration is not serious. And for you to stabilize politics, you really need quite a number of MPs. It's not the 50-50 situation we know. We also know that Azimio had more MPs in the House, in the National Assembly, and it was 50-50 the Senate. But he was able to buy, you know, some of these smaller parties to his side. How long will you keep people by buying them? And if you buy a member of parliament, have you bought his followers? Or he has just gone alone? So he's worried on the political mathematics and the future of 2027. And that's why this effort to get Honorable Kalonzo to his side.
What political mathematics are those? Because when you say yourself, at the Senate, the Kenya Kwanza team has clear majority. At the National Assembly, yes, it was contested, but it was resolved. You now say that he bought them off. But what political stability is that is bothering him?
You know, the election was closely contested. It's a 50-50 election. And again, when you see in the National Assembly, you know, we had more Azimio MPs than Kenya Kwanza MPs. In Senate, it is 50-50. Therefore, it means that there will come some decisions, there will come some voting, whereby you need help from the Azimio side. For example, if you want to impeach somebody, or if you want to change the constitution, where Parliament can change constitution, or if there is a disagreement on some of the issues, you need a clear majority. So the moment there's a little disagreement and you don't have clear majority, then it begins to worry you. And for somebody who plans politics very well, like Honorable Ruto does, he's very worried by this particular issue. And there are many things we are likely to disagree. Most of the promises you may not be able to keep. And the Kenyans are not happy with many things, like the skyrocketing cost of living. He had promised it. Then he also promised to give the Hustler Fund. Then later on he said that there will be some small cost on it. It takes you back to what the government was doing before. So there are many things Kenya Kwanza had promised, which are not real. And remember, Kenya Kwanza has been stabilized by people from Azimio, like Honorable Wetangula, Honorable Kingi, Honorable Musalia. All these voting blocks clearly belong to Azimio, but he was able to shift in the last minute. The moment you don't satisfy them, you have the leader there, but without these people.
Okay, interesting. Senator Nyuto, are you convinced that that's the biggest problem that William Ruto has at the moment?
Thank you, Gituko, and I think listening to my colleague, Senator Manzo, I think he has really evaded the question that you asked him, because I think you asked him about the president's assertion yesterday in Kitui that he gave Kalonzo a job which maybe he declined and decided to try the opposition for some time. And I think one clear thing about Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka is that he's a person you cannot understand, just like the deputy president said yesterday. Because Kalonzo Musyoka, for example, was, he attended the Mashujaa Day celebrations was it not? Uhuru Gardens. And like the deputy president said, everybody thought that he had finally decided to join government. Then the following day, on Sunday, I think it was it Saturday? Then he was spotted in Homa Bay. And so this is a leader, and I have nothing against him, that you cannot understand. My colleague here knows that Kalonzo Musyoka applied to be both Speaker of the National Assembly and Speaker of the Senate. And as we were waiting, and Senator Manzo knows, as we were waiting maybe to vote between Amason Kingi, who had been fronted by Kenya Kwanza, and Kalonzo Musyoka, then the clerk, because he's the one that was leading now the House of Senate, read, they had a notice from Kalonzo Musyoka withdrawing from the same. And so, well, I think one thing I want to agree with my colleague Senator Manzo is that yes, President Ruto needs Kalonzo Musyoka and maybe his numbers. Of course, every president needs numbers in both houses, and this is not new because going back to 2007. Kibaki called the same Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka when, of course, there was that back and forth. Yeah. And so I don't think really it's about numbers. I think it's about, inclusivity, because President Ruto wants to run a government that is inclusive. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he also welcomed even Raila Odinga without, of course, a Nusum Kate arrangement. And so I think it's just about inclusivity. I think William Ruto wants to run a government where every Kenyan feels they belong.
I'm just wondering, listening to you, and I think we should listen to that clip of President William Ruto, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, and Ovinya Ndeti as they spoke about Kalonzo Musyoka yesterday.
Tumesema wakati huu Machakos, Kitui, hata Makueni, hapa ni kazi tu. As we want to work, we want to make sure that we deliver for our people. We will work with you, we will walk the journey. All I can ask you, ndugu yako, jua vile mtaongea na yeye.
Since we have no problem with the Kalonzo Musyoka, but we don't understand him at all. Ile ameaibishwa, ile alioneshwa, akaambiwa ya kwamba ati yeye hawezi lete kura, yule dada ya kwetu yeye atalete kura. Dada yetu alilete kura yote? Si ni Kalonzo alilete? Na gari yako pale. We don't understand him.
Mimi mwenyewe nimemtafuta huyo Steven, nimeketi chini na yeye, nikamwambia ndio hii serikali tuende pamoja. Akaniambia kwanza anataka kujaribu ya upinzani. So wacha jaribu kidogo, alafu tutaona vile.
Okay, Senator Manzo, did your party leader receive a call from William Ruto, the president, on an invitation to form government?
Well, you know, leaders talk, and if President William Ruto placed a call to Kalonzo Musyoka, he would not refuse to pick his call. The thing is, he may not agree with him or whatever offer, like without consulting, you know, his team and his political party. About attending the Mashujaa Day.
No, wait.
Because he alleged to it.
Yes.
It's good to clear it so that we move forward. Because it has given an indication like...
Back to Mashujaa Day, but first, has your party leader approached you with the thought that there's an invitation to join government by the president and you have applied your mind on it?
No, he has not brought it to the National Executive Committee or NEC of the Wiper Party. We heard about it. And when we met as a NEC, we resolved to be part of the opposition and to check the government thoroughly. Because also remember, the President, William Ruto, has called upon the opposition to check his government and to be good opposition. So we want to be good opposition and check his government thoroughly to make sure Kenyans are served better. You know, Kenyans are confused about one thing. In the hearts of many Kenyans, they are single-party rule. But in the lip service, we are multi-party. You know, a lot of Kenyans, everybody wants to be in government, but if everybody walks into government, who checks the government? And you know, this is a government formed with a lot of people with questionable issues, with people who should have stepped aside if they were already in government, and they are the ones who are be vetted to be in government.
So, Senator, are you confirming that indeed the president reached out to Kalonzo Musyoka with an offer to form government together? He
did, I'm aware. He did, but the answer, Honorable Kalonzo...
What was the specific offer?
Really, I don't have a particular offer I heard of, but it never even got into offers. The Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka did not accept that offer. It was among the first things President Ruto did. Immediately was elected as a president, and I've told you the reason. He's a very worried man. He knows what government is carrying. And although he claims that it is inclusive, it is not inclusive at all. Although he claims that we have done away with tribalism, we have not done away with any tribalism at all. His government is simply formed between Central and the Rift Valley. And anybody controlling those two blocks is likely to form government. It's just 50-50 election. And therefore, when you come to serious matters or when you have a little disagreement in Kenya Kwanza, then he knows you lose terribly. And he knows clearly before he formed the government, there are many things which did not add up. He knows a few things which they did in the election, although the courts held that whatever they did not overturn the general thinking of the people.
What is it that they did?
He's aware of there were very many Kenyans or many other people who are not Kenyans who trooped into the country and voted for him. Where? He knows. Where? At the borders between us and Uganda, he knows. He knows there are people who are registered as Kenyans who have Kenyan ID and have registered as voters in Kenya, and they have done the same in Uganda, for example. You know, along the border between Busia and all the way to Karamojong, along that border. So that changes the equation, and that number actually went up to close to 200,000. So whatever differences.
Wait a minute. They specifically came to vote in for William.
Crossed the border, voted. And when there's also voting in Uganda, they cross the border and vote that side.
So what I'm asking is, they specifically came in to vote for William Ruto?
Yes, of course. And they say so.
How do you know that? What is the
When you meet these youths, they tell you openly. That's what they did. And it's something they've been doing for many years. But besides that also, you know the other malpractices with the election here.
Senator, hold on. You're saying that there are non-Kenyans who voted for the president of Kenya?
Of course. And they speak, and they say.
Have you gathered that information, and how you plan?
Not before the election petition. But I also want to say on Azimio part, engines of the presidential vote would have picked that out. And if you talk to anybody in Bungoma and those border constituencies, they'll tell you. But engines, our own engines, that's where we take it. Our own engines should have been able to challenge such people and tell them, show us where your home is, where is your resident in Kenya. You know, so he knows there are many, he knows there are many things they did which to add up the vote to make him become the president. And therefore, he must look.
How do you explain that? Because you vote by being identified, so how did that?
You are already a registered voter. You have two IDs. You have a Kenyan ID and you have a Ugandan ID. And during the time of election, you cross the border and you register as a voter in Kenya. So the day there is election in Kenya, you cross the border, you vote, and you go back to your country.
But those numbers are not sufficient to vote for a Kenya Kwanza governor in those areas?
Well, this particular youth had been mobilized to come and vote for the presidential vote mainly. They may have voted for other people they don't know, but I'm blaming our engines or lack of it for not checking that thoroughly, because it would have come out as a big story if our engines were keen enough. And that's one of the things we take as a meal, was a misgiving. But what I'm trying to say is President William Ruto knows to become president and to continue be so and to hold a government stable, you need serious numbers in the two houses, so that in the event of a fallout, you have number. And one of the places he's hunting for this number is in Ukambani. He may have Governor Wavinya or one or two governors supporting him, but that's not the people. He may have bought, and I'm aware, some members of Kenya Kwanza, Azimio joined him, like UDM party, knowing very well that they had supported a different presidential candidate, but did they move with their people? Did they move with their followers? The answer may be no.
So when you hear your governor, Wavinya, indicating that they will work with the government and find something for our leader, who is she?
You know, people have misunderstood what it means to form government. The current constitution has a majority government and a minority government. The work of all members of parliament is not to be part of executive, is to check the executive and perform their duty as legislators. But everybody thinks, we still have the old thinking of the Kanu days, everybody of the one single party days. Everybody thinks for you to get favors, you must be in government. If you are a governor, you have your fair share of allocation, which you have to go and work with. You don't need anything else from the national government. You don't need anything else from the president. So it is a political, way of brainwashing Kenyans believing that opposition is not valuable. Opposition is very valuable to check the government of the day, to work for the people.
I will come back to you because you have an issue with Mashujadi attendance. But Senator Ledamo Lekina is now here. He's the Senator of Narok County. Good morning, Senator.
Good morning.
And thank you for joining us this morning. And you're talking about the sentiments of the president yesterday and the deputy president, saying that they do not understand Kalonzo Musyoka, that he had been offered to come and form government with the president. He said that he wants to play a role in the opposition. How strong is the Azimio movement, and what is your agenda for the next 5 years if such kind of talk is to continue informing the political process in the country?
Let me begin by saying this. We are all fans of different kind of musicians. We're all fans of different kind of school of thoughts. And one person in particular, Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton, talked about the saying that says you can't make old friends. If, let's say for instance, Kalonzo Musyoka was offered to be able to come in and make a government with William Ruto. You know, William Ruto and Kalonzo Musyoka have never really worked together in government per se. And it will be very, very difficult for them to be able to agree. If you look at the relationship between Raila Amolo Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka, these two buddies have been friends for a long time. They understand each other. They understand the challenges that Kenyans face. And they wanted to be able to continue and build the nation that way. I think for us as Azimio coalition, I think the most important thing is to remain united, to remain focused, and to be able to check government. I'm happy that my friend Dan Maanzo has reminded Kenyans that in Parliament, there is really no opposition. You know, Parliament is there not to become an extension of the executive, but to be there to be able to oversight on the national government, on the executive. So really, I think our focus now is to be able to scrutinize, to be able to check on government policies. And that is why last week, when we finished setting up our committees, everyone is now gearing up and getting ready to be able to oversight on the executive. So I don't think that William Ruto should be extending, you know, an invitation to His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka to join him. I think what he ought to do is to, you know, get up with his business. The problem with these guys is that they are still stuck up with the old election mentality. They are still in the electioneering mood. Right now, we want to see solutions. We want to see problems. When you go to Turkana, if you look at the dailies today, you will see people are dying. There are villages in Turkana where people are dying. There are villages in Samburu. There are villages in northern eastern, in Kajiado, where the drought is ravaging the economies. So really, this is what we need to be focusing on. Let's build this nation. Let's try to see whether we in Parliament can be able to come together, scrutinize these government policies, and move the country ahead. The day we realize that elections come and go is the day we will move on as a nation. You know, every single time, I always talk about civil servants being the most critical people in this country, because they'll always be there. And someone new will come and knock the door. You know, they'll just gracefully receive them. They'll shake their hands. They'll smile. But really, they will sit there and say, welcome again. And ultimately, it is the civil servants who will chart the way for this country. So really, for us, we want to continue bringing the Kenyans together and ensuring that we scrutinize the government policies and take this country ahead and bring in changes which are really needed in this country. Yes.
Let's listen to something that Kalonzo Musyoka alongside leaders from Azimio la Umoja spoke about yesterday in parts of Nyanza. Watch.
Gorogoro is at 200 shillings. Grinding Gorogoro, which used to be 5 shillings, is now 20 shillings because the price of fuel has gone up. Life has become unbearable for Kenyans.
The signs are showing that we are going to have more suffering, where you have a government which does not believe in subsidizing the poor. It does not believe in subsidizing those who cannot have a square meal.
So when you have the judiciary compromised and you have the parliament compromised or bought, because some of our colleagues unfortunately accept to be bought with money. And now the church, please, let us regain our national conscience.
Right. Those are some sentiments about the leadership of the current administration, but also Kalonzo Musyoka talking about regaining the national conscience. It sounds like he's insinuating that the church had lost its conscience. But Senator Ledama, still with you. I'm just wondering, because yes, you tell me that you're gearing so that you play your role as the minority in the two houses of parliament, the majority to play their side. But essentially, because we know, Kenya Kwanza, the leadership structure is quite clear. Azimio, there was a presidential candidate, there was a running mate of the presidential candidate, then there are all these other leaders, including Uhuru Kenyatta, who is the chair of the Azimio Council. But moving towards 2027, what is the game plan? What is the role of these leaders getting to that?
I think if I understand your question clearly, I think you're asking us, what are we doing in terms of looking at the future? The future begins today. If you look at what is happening in this country, a lot of youth are suffering. A lot of youth do not have any jobs. A lot of youth are eager to be able to be part of this economy. I think for me, I would say that looking into the future, we must bring all our people together. We must continue to call off government on this rhetoric of electioneering. We must continue telling them that we want to be able to make sure that people can be able to afford a meal. Affording a meal is something very, very, very important. And there are people who don't really understand what it takes to be able to afford a meal. Because when they get into their homes, their maids and their domestic workers will take care of them. But there are people who have to wake up very, very early in the morning to be able to go and look for something. So I think the plan for us is to be able to make sure that we are there for the Wanjikos. We are there so that we demand for subsidies, because this is a tough economy. Mm-hmm. Look at what happened a couple of years ago. COVID came, it hit. A lot of businesses went down. People are still jobless. So really, when this government talks about what they're calling the Hustler Fund, and the other day I was actually saying, we should do away with these terminologies, because the truth is, there's nothing like, hustler. It's all BS, to tell you the truth. Because if you look at the government which has been formed, I mean, these are the biggest billionaires we've ever found in this country. I don't want to be a devil's advocate here, but I would ask one simple question. Have these guys been filing their taxes ever since? Can they tell us what their liabilities are? Can they walk us through how they make their billions of shillings? Can they be able to be clean enough to say that they did not step over other people to be able, or trouble other people for them to be able to make their money? So the plan is very simple. We fight for what is right for the people of Kenya, and that is for them to be able to get water when they don't have water, for them to be able to get a meal on the table. When Senator Kajuan talks about a gorogoro being 200 shillings, and you can't even grind that gorogoro, he understands that, because his constituents are people who are suffering. People want food, but there's some people who just don't get it, and they will never get it.
Senator, when you raise questions about whether these nominees can actually account for whether they've been paying their taxes, I would imagine they present a compliance certificate from KRA. That's not sufficient?
My friend, talk about a compliance certificate. I think if we really are to believe in the fiduciary duty, if really we are to ask ourselves, how most of us, have made our money, that is a question that will be able to take us into a completely different direction. I think the key most important thing is that, I had the question is, what is your net worth? I don't think they said, what is your net worth? I think they said, what is your worth? So really, when you say I'm worth 4 billion, what is your liability? How much do you owe? And how have you been able to accumulate all that money? Because, logic will dictate that these people who are billionaires are the biggest taxpayers. They should have gone there proudly with a certificate from KRA saying, I'm one of the largest taxpayers in this country. So really, there's so much, that there's a lot, it leads a lot to be desired in terms of their statements.
Okay, I hear you. Senator Nyoto, quite a lot of things have been said, including those allegations about that foreigners may have voted for the president of Kenya. I don't know what you have to say about that, but also your response to the accusations that a government that is not really keeping its promises, especially on the cost of living?
Thank you, Gituko, and I think I'll start by addressing the first question that I've put to me, and relating to what Senator Mazo alleged. And Senator Mazo's allegations cannot be anything less than sensational. For him to allege on national TV that there are foreigners that actually are able to vote for President William Samoei Ruto, I think that is, would I say, laughable? Because one, it's a secret ballot. Even if there were going to be foreigners, he cannot prove that they came to vote for William Ruto. And I liked the question that you asked him, that these foreigners that voted for just the president were not able to vote so that they could give their side the governor. I mean, give Kenya Kwanza a governor. I mean, that was a very good question to him. And so to allege that you know who voted for who, while it was a secret ballot for me, that is not acceptable. Number two, while still on that, we know that Uhuru Kenyatta, then president, was in Azimio. And of course, had the benefit of intelligence reports. And this is something that should have been gotten to him and the government, that there are foreigners that were registering in Kenya to vote specifically for Dr. William Samoei Ruto. And I think this is something also that they would have brought in the petition, in the presidential petition that they filed later. So I think that is that is not something that he should just allege, and maybe not provide some maybe evidence and why they did not bring it at the petition level. About, what was your second question? Sorry.
The second question was on these accusations that the government is not keeping its promises.
Yeah, thank you. Again, you know, I think we need to be honest with ourselves, Gituko. How long has Dr. William Samoei Ruto been in power? How long did it take to create the mess that he's supposed to have cleared in under 1 month? I mean, who was responsible for creating this mess? I mean, the food prices, they were very high even by the time we went for elections. And this is not something that you will just sort out in one day. You cannot, provide a solution like it's an instant cup of coffee. And I think that in trying to solve this problem of, say, skyrocketing food prices, I think the government of William Samoei Ruto has pronounced itself that we want to subsidize production, not consumption. So, of course, in the short term, subsidizing consumption would look very good. But in the long term, maybe it may not even be sustainable. And I think this is something that everybody knows, that now at least affordable fertilizer has been, is actually out there. It may not have been sufficient as at the moment, but we are building on it. And so I think what Kenya Kwanza is looking at, what we are looking at is, getting a more permanent solution to this food shortage and the skyrocketing of prices. And also this issue of high prices of fuel and petroleum products, of course, we know that these subsidies were going to some private companies. And that is why Kenya Kwanza decided to remove those subsidies, so that at least the market forces will determine
Senator Ruto,
in the long term.
I think I've heard that many times.
Yes.
You could hear which are these private companies and their owners. You could promise to give us that information.
Well, I do not want to be sensational like my friend Senator Maanzo was, but we know who owns Rubis, for example, and we know that Rubis has bought very many other oil companies, and I may not have concrete evidence here, but I know that some policies that were made to benefit especially Rubis and some other companies.
Just on that note,
right.
I think it's very important for us to be candid. I think if it was in Parliament, like my friend Gerald Gay would like to say, is that my colleague here would be asked to substantiate. Because I think when you look at when you mention a company like Rubis, and you say you know who owns Rubis, the best thing is for you to be able to say, so-and-so owns Rubis. And so has taken money that belongs to the public to be able to benefit a private company. Mm-hmm. Because I think from what I've seen, I believe Rubis is a multinational corporation. So the day that it stopped from being a multinational corporation to being an individual company, it's something which I do not know. Mm-hmm. So really, I think it is important for us to be careful.
So Senator Ruto, because
yes.
I'm sure you'll come here on the show one more time, or some other time.
Yeah.
Please do this assignment for us. So you said that a certain amount of money was benefiting a certain oil marketer.
Yeah.
So the information we would need is, how is it that it is them who are benefiting and not everyone else? Yet even if petroleum prices were to remain high and the consumer is paying, the money will still get to them, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that if petrol station A is selling fuel at 179 shillings,
Yes.
whether it's paid by the government or by the consumer, the money is still getting to them. So
Yeah.
really understanding how that relationship is working. But Senator Manzo, before we take a break, you wanted to explain why Kalonzo Musyoka attended Mashujaa Day and whether that has any connotation on him working with William Ruto.
You know, there are many Kenyans, many heroes who also are on the part of Azimio. And therefore, these people needed to be represented by the leadership in Mashujaa Day. And Mashujaa Day is a national day for everyone. You see, Kenyans must know that we are all in one ship called Kenya. We want our ship to sail to success for all Kenyans. And even when we are in minority and we are checking the government, our idea is not to drill the ship of Kenya to sink. Our idea is to make it be steered better, so that if the captain has taken the wrong target and is likely to take us far away, we correct the captain of the ship, who is the president, and tell him this is the right notes to get Kenya to the right place. About Rubies or any other company, I don't know who the owners are, although once in a while I fuel them. I believe there are so many other companies in the market. You cannot pull out one company. It will not make any sense, and that really has to be substantiated. Okay. About the election, the moment the election is audited, what I'm talking about will come to fruition, and the people at the border have this information. So I'm sure because once in a while you have to audit an election. This election has to be audited, and one of the things we need to check is, the border points, which people are crossing from whatever country, even if we are East Africans, all of us, because Kenya is surrounded by Eastern African members. It will not be proper for somebody to organize, youths to come into the country from whatever border, vote here and walk back to their country, having determined how the election in Kenya is going to be. So when the election is audited, we'll be able to get this, to show this. And this is why I'm saying, and this is why Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka has a problem with compromised institutions. And the Honorable Rigathi should not say that he cannot be understood. Why will you join a compromised government? Compromised judiciary, compromised systems, compromised so many, institutions. Why will you want to be part of that? You want to be out to check them, so that the compromising is removed. And this compromising begins with the formation of cabinet. How do you front people with questionable character to form government, yet in normal circumstances under Chapter 6 of the Constitution, they should be stepping aside to complete the cases they are being tried on. You know what happened with the removal, with how these people had been charged. All of a sudden, the DPP withdraws the charges. There are so many questions, and you don't expect Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka to work in that kind of government.
I hear you, but just before we take a break, so you're saying one of the counties affected is Busia?
Yeah. And from Busia all the way to the north.
Okay, and for instance, you said these numbers, these are people that were registered for...
It is something which was planned a long time ago. During the registration period, they acquired identity cards.
In 2017?
No, that I can't say, but they have already acquired identity cards of Kenya, and during the registration of voters, they registered as voters in Kenya.
That's what I'm asking.
And at the same time, they also registered voters in their country.
That's what I'm asking. Were they registered to vote in the 2022 election specifically, or they were also there in 2017?
No, they were not there in 2017. They registered while preparing for 2022.
The reason I'm asking you that, Senator, is because when you look at Busia County, in 2013, they had 251,000 registered voters, 251,517. In 2017, they had 351,048. That's an increment of about 100. In 2022, they had 416,756. That's an increment of 65,000 between 2017 and 2022. So I'm just wondering, because
have you checked Bungoma also?
And
checked Pokot all the way? You have to get a total of that.
Senator, yes. In Bungoma, the difference between 2017 and 2022 was 86,000 voters. Vihiga, 37,000. Which other county did you say?
Have you gone to Pokot?
West Pokot, 39,000 extra. Turkana, 47,000.
Extra. All that goes more than...
So I'm looking at that, and Trans Nzoia, 59,000. I'm looking at that and wondering, would you really make a case? Because Homa Bay County had 74,000 extra voters. Kisumu, 67. So it appears almost within range of that difference.
If you take the sum total,
no, I agree with
and
you.
whatever number, whether it is 1 or it's 10 or it's 100, whatever number, what the point we are trying to make is when you are auditing the election, this should come out, and I'm sure it will come out, and it's something we should stop for the future. And I'm very sure that we are soon going to have a by-election in Bungoma for the senatorial. This is one of the things we should check.
Okay, all right, Senator, you raised quite a serious issue, and I think we'll be looking into that to see the veracity of the allegations, but also looking at